What's up, everyone? It's your favorite internet roommate. And real quick, I just want to give a little shout out to Max Wilson for this comment. Buddy brought the tassels. Goddamn! I love that comment. Everyone, go down and comment, Buddy brought the tassels. Goddamn! In honor of our boy and me wearing the tassels once again. And that's right, I'm acting up again. I'm obsessing over cool, nerdy little details about games and conflating them to be more important than they actually are. Why, you ask? Well, for the very same reason that Shinji nutted to an unconscious body. Because I'm a gamer. Souls games are like my favorite thing ever, to the point where they've basically become like comfort games for me. Those type of games where you know that you have a backlog the size of a Bible, but that Dark Souls 3 with over 4,000 hours looking real good. And when you play them, you throw on a podcast, you chill out, you get your booty hole hyper comboed by a Corvian.
Whatever happens, happens.
These games literally changed my life, and there's so many great things about them. Complex boss fights to have you constantly rethinking attack time windows. Okay, he's gonna throw it out. Here comes. Oh, no, okay, next one for sure. Here it goes. No, okay, this time for sure. Here we go. Yo, what the masterclass level design that will have telling you that their favorite moment in a game is an elevator ride that's clearly there to mask a loading screen? It's me. I'm bitch. Super in-depth and intricate lore that has basically historians on YouTube just making feature-length film videos, just analyzing said history of a video game world, which is so good that it has bitches who will listen to a Dark Souls lore to go to sleep to before they go to bed. And I hate to admit it, but it's me. I'm bitch. Point is, whether I was a tanky, poised noob monster just searching for any advantage I could get on my first playthrough, to my later playthroughs as a chaotic, naked flippy boy, these games will always mean so much to me. If you've seen this video I made, you know that atmosphere to me is one of the most important parts of gaming. Because my favorite thing about games is just getting immersed in them. I love when any game can make me feel like I'm actually in my character's shoes. Like I can actually smell the poopy, disease-filled stench of the 10,000 infuriating swamps that Husbando Miyazaki just loves to put in all his games. Like I can actually feel the clinking between me and my onion companion's drinks. Like I'm actually there in a boss fight when I play. Oh, I'm so hyped to finally be able to say this. I feel like I'm actually a YouTuber now. Here goes. Raid Shadow Legend. Raid is a completely free-to-play, tactical turn-based MMO battle game with over 80 million players. It's basically got console PC graphics, but on your phone. It's got a ton of bosses to fight with your clan, and that clan is made up of champions, of which there are over 650 of. So billions of ways that you can customize and build your champions to make the perfect team. Especially because there's new champions and new updates every month. When it comes to MMOs, I've always felt that your endgame content should be just as important as your leveling content. And Raid has got that covered with its Doom Tower. It's basically a giant prison where, in lore, Arbiter fought a bunch of bad dudes but couldn't defeat them, so she kind of just locked them away in this tower. You know, she'll definitely for sure 100% with absolute certainty defeat them later. She won't just like not do anything about it and let us take care of it thousands of years from now or something. So she didn't do anything, and now it's up to us. The Doom Tower is failing at holding back the Serath leaking into our world, so we gotta gather a strong army of champions to climb its 120 floors, fight the bosses, but you also need to experiment with the teams you bring in because some bosses need specific mechanics to beat them. Some bosses can ignore block debuffs, some can drain turn meters or strip buffs altogether. So choose your champions wisely and have fun trying out different things to get through this tower. So if you've ever thought about playing Raid, right now is a really great time. They're doing an egg hunt, but obviously not typical eggs, we're talking dragon eggs. Just download Raid Shadow Legends using the link below, copy in your in-game player ID, head on over to egghunt.plarium.com from April 14th to May 15th. And then just enter your player ID and boom, you're on an exciting AR adventure. And if you scour the dragon's lair and you find the hidden egg, you'll be in for a chance to win amazing in-game items and even real life prizes, ranging from legendary raid champions to Amazon gift cards with a total value of... what? 20,000? Is that really? That's quite a bit. You should like actually try this at least once. And while this event is for new players, existing ones can join in too. Again, just go to egghunt.plarium.com and you'll find a special promo code that everyone can use to earn a small gift in game. This is a lot of great stuff coming to Raid. If you haven't started playing yet and you've thought about it, this is probably the best time. So just use my link in the description, or you can scan my QR code right here to get bonuses. Like the Champion Knight Errant, or other useful things like energy refills or XP boosters. So whether you want to play and take it easy and casually, or you want to compete to be the best, just hit my link in description and I'll see you there. And also, using my link to get me to 70 installs and filling out this progress bar will be super helpful to the channel. And once you're installed and ready to go, you can come find me under the name Raid Pitstop. But I feel that the conversation around these games is mostly dominated by difficulty or boss fights or lore, which, don't get me wrong, obviously super important stuff, but I wanted to make a video to talk about something that I feel like not a lot of people talk about when it comes to these Souls games, which I feel is also super important to them, which is atmosphere. I mean, just look at the Japanese cover of Dark Souls 1. This is Dark Souls, that atmosphere of just sitting by a bonfire, listening to the crackles of the flames as you take a much needed respite from the decaying hostile world. I guess the American cover didn't really get that, so we got whatever the fuck this is. FromSoft's games have always been masters of atmosphere, and almost every element of their games only furthers that atmosphere and makes you feel more that you're not just playing a game when you boot up their games. More like you're entering a portal to a little pocket dimension that just so happens to exist in your gaming console. And I wanted to make this video to discuss the elements that make these games' atmosphere so great. And also just give appreciation and talk about some of my favorite atmospheric moments in them. So without further ado, let us fall into this inconspicuous whirlpool and talk about some atmosphere. When it comes to Demon Souls, there's a lot of atmospheric moments to point to, as it is one of, if not the most atmospheric Souls game in my opinion, as almost every gameplay element has a story reason to be there. And I know that's kind of a thing with all Souls games, but they really stress that here. In Demon Souls, you don't just ride any old elevator to go fight a old man boss fight. No, that elevator is ever so slowly, gruelingly turned up by these undead slaves. When I saw this, it simultaneously had me like, yo, who is this motherfucker? But also just made me feel all this corruption that's going on in the world. Like, I felt so bad for these dudes because, like, this is probably their entire life. This is their whole point of existing. I could go all day with naming multiple atmospheric areas or little atmospheric moments, but when it comes to Demon Souls, there's one atmospheric moment / area that stands above the rest. The Tower of Latria.
Please, help me.
More specifically, the very first level of the Prison of Hope. Man, the first time I explored this place, the amount of just fear and unease that was in me, man. Like, I was shivering my timbers. It was one of those moments where the atmosphere was so thick that while I was playing the game, I was actually having my character slowly walk everywhere as if I was actually there in this prison. That is both a testament to this area's greatness and my ever-expanding nerdiness. And while a lot of elements add to this atmosphere, like the design of the level, it's got these dark and murky walls, jail cells, torture devices. The design of the level is very cramped and maze-like, and everything looks similar, so it's really confusing to explore. All the enemies add to the atmosphere too. The Lovecraftian mind flares are so spooky and you want to stay far as hell away from them. But also just the undead prisoners are used in so many different ways to like really flesh this place's atmosphere out. You see them hung from chains, you see them in torture devices, you see them dead on the floor, you see them reaching out their hand out of the jail cells. You see them clearly experimented on and made into a big amalgamation of undead people in a ball. It is this clear example of cruelty. It is a nightmare to be here. But the best element that really fleshes this place's atmosphere out is the sound design. For one, you're hearing this constant uneasy buzzing of insects. Off that, I'm already thinking of like decaying dead bodies with probably bugs infesting them. The undead prisoners that are alive have completely lost their minds, so you hear them constantly groaning and screaming in pain and madness. You hear this alarming bell that comes from the mind flayers, which makes you fear them only more as you hear them from afar. And of course, you hear the screaming of Rydell.
Please, help me.
All of this creates this terrifying soundscape that had me so spooked when I was exploring this place. So much so when later I started hearing this singing, I got really scared and walked so slowly. I wasn't sure if it was going to be a good NPC or some crazy boss fight. Because the singing also had this eerie vibe because it kept repeating just 2 notes. It never finished, and that added so much to this place's atmosphere. For the most part, Souls games don't really have overworld music, which to some might be a bummer, but I think it's a great choice because it elevates the sound design of these games that's always great. When you come to the Prison of Hope, you're not going to hear any music. All you're going to hear is what the prisoners would probably hear too. And when you do hear some kind of music with the singing, it's also creepy. This enraptured me so much that at times I just go out of my way to listen to like ambience from certain levels of these games. Because that's what us dweebs do. And I want to thank these channels in specific for making these ambient videos. Love these people, subscribe to them. And I always recommend if you're gonna play Demon's Souls, play the PS3 version and the PS5 version if you can. While the remake is great in a lot of ways, it really misses the mark in a lot of places when it comes to atmosphere, especially here. It took out most of the sound, including the insect buzzing, and anything that was left was just lowered down in the volume, and instead gave the whole area this hauntingly beautiful song, which sure sounds great, but it completely misses the point of this area. That's not at all what this atmosphere is supposed to be. But before we go on, I thought it might be cool to actually talk to a few Souls content creators and get their input on the atmosphere of these games. So let us go into our good friend AesirAesthetic's world, shall we?
Oh, hey, IP.
Hey, what's up? So I wanted to ask, what is your favorite, atmospheric moment or I guess area in a Souls game?
My favorite moment in these games is probably the first level of Latria. And it's the level I come back to most often, especially after I started going into game design. One of the most esoteric fringe design philosophies that sort of made its way into Demon's Souls, going from the Shadow Towers and the King's Fields, was the idea of a hard limit to your resources. So your actual healing resources, they don't auto-regenerate. This isn't Estus. So you need to find the stuff in the levels. And in some ways, this can be really abused. Like, you can just stock up on 99 of every healing item. But if you just play the game like a regular person, and you don't do that, then there's a lot of game direction that comes about very much just from the application of these mechanics. And for the first level of Latria, one of the most astonishing things that I discovered when I started doing some research into this is that there's absolutely no healing grass that you can find in the first level of Latria. And it's the only first level in the entire game like that. And that is so amazing because you go in there and you've stocked up on some resources, but there is no reprieve from the dread. It's just you're constantly losing more and more and more of your resources. And because it's such a big and convoluted level, you're just getting more and more lost, and you have fewer and fewer resources to go back to. And man, the tension and the dread that just manifests from these mechanics, it's so beautiful. The Mind Flayer enemy is just brought over pretty unchanged from Dungeons and Dragons. And you're like, this is obviously such a great enemy in Latria, because it's such a narrow level, and you have to, you can dart into the cells, but you haven't really escaped from the Mind Flayers when you go into the cells. You just sort of broken their line of vision, and if they chase you into the cell, then you're really just a cornered rat. And that's like, that's such a great headspace for the player to be in. I don't know if there's an actual term for this, but I'm sure if you dig up some dusty old books from the olden days, you can find a word that's called, what's that word again? Oh, game direction. That's the word. And I think Latria is just a treasure trove of quality game direction, wherever you look.
Thank you so much for doing this, man. I'll see you later. Much like Demon Souls, Dark Souls 1 also has a bunch of areas that are dripping with atmosphere. Immediately, you got Firelink Shrine, this moss-filled cobblestone ruin for wandering souls that becomes your home as you explore this ever-hostile world. Just getting stabbed, bonked, burned by a dragon, poisoned by an oversized rat, only to then take this elevator and hear this. Oh, the comfort, the safety, the serenity. This is when Firelink became home, which only makes the atmosphere of losing Firelink later hit harder. But none of this would be as atmospheric or hit as hard if the game wasn't as difficult, which is another reason that difficulty is integral to the Souls experience. This don't hit as hard if I wasn't getting hit as hard.
You guys literally sound like abuse victims.
In most cases in Souls, you're likely just a nobody in a world amongst gods. It's like you're literally surrounded by Saiyans, gods of destructions, and angels, and you're Yamcha. But unlike in Dragon Ball World where that kind of sucks, here it adds to the atmosphere. It makes it more effective. You should have the odds against you. You should feel like you're nothing special. But even small things like the moment you see Solaire staring into this beautiful painting-like cloudy sky with the beams of light peeking through. Oh man, I always take a moment to just look at this skybox with Solaire. There's something so creepy about those little whispers you hear in the Duke's archives. And hearing the Pasakas, which are enemies, crying just helps you fully understand just kind of the crazy experiments that were going on, and it makes you feel bad for an enemy through atmosphere. The comforting sounds of those birds that you hear right outside of Sen's fortress. I love this place simply for the atmosphere. Man, I was so on edge when I first played this game that when I heard the atmosphere of Andre's clinking of his hammer, I was scared. Like I thought something crazy was down there. But obviously it was just our husbando Andre, and now ever since then, that sound is the most comforting thing ever. And that atmosphere is only punctuated by Andre's dialogue, mainly this line.
Don't get yourself killed. Neither of us want to see you go hollow.
Man, that line holds a lot of weight for me. I'm sorry. I think Dark Souls 1 had like the best character quotes, like ever. We could go all day. The majesty and scale of Anor Londo, the terrifying breathing sounds in the Tomb of Giants, feeling of decay and stillness in the painting of Ariamis. But I think we all know the most atmospheric moment in Dark Souls 1, and probably the Souls series, is this. Past the depths, past the upper part of Blighttown, past the swamp of Blighttown, past the tree with the 2 invisible walls, past the Great Hollow, and then this. What is basically the complete underneath of the world. It immediately reminds me of the bottom of the toxic jungle in Nausicaa. This majestic ethereal blue sky, the seemingly infinite number of endless length tree trunks, the winding sand ash path. Is that a flying hydra? Bro, look, when I came here, I was in awe and I was spooked the out. I felt like I came across something I shouldn't have. And then seeing this flying hydra go past me, I don't care that the animation for it looks a little stiff. The feeling it was going for was achieved. My stomach dropped to my asshole. This is pure concentrated megalophobia in gaming form. And there's like nothing really to do here except vibe. And the music only adds to this area's atmosphere. It paints it as this like sacred place. When I got here and heard it, it was that same feeling I got when I first got to the Temple of Time in Ocarina of Time, where this place felt so sacred that I didn't want to run. I just wanted to walk. But the difference is, I wanted to walk back because I felt like I do not belong here. But if you think for a second that I'm gonna turn back and get waxed by those giant Mike Tyson with the hands mushroom people, I want no smoke. Ash Lake is a one-of-a-kind experience, not just in Souls, but in gaming. It's something I'll never forget, and that's mainly because of the atmosphere. While DS2 does get a lot of warranted hate, there's a lot of flaws that people point out, and I tend to agree with them. But one thing that I think DS2 does as well, if not better in some points, than other Souls games is that atmosphere. I every so often get the urge to play this game again, and I do when I get to about the halfway point and then I just stop. But why do I keep coming back? Why do I get this urge? Well, it's because of this. DS2 has a pretty unique vibe compared to other Souls games. It's a lot more melancholic and lonely. There's so many beautiful vistas to look at, and they always make me want to go back to playing the game. I come back to this game because nothing has really given me the same feeling. Going through a cramped, dark cave only to then be touched by the slightest bit of light, only for that light to then crevice through the cave exit, and boom. Majula, baby. It's the best hub, a oasis of comfort. The sound of the crashing waves, the old decrepit buildings, the music. Oh my god, the way this lulls you into a pure calm is enchanting. And it's only helped by the NPCs that join it all. All of them just as lonely and aimless as you are. All of these characters don't belong anywhere, so they came here. A gathering of outcasts. And up until Elden Ring, DS2 had the most wide range of color palettes and aesthetics in its areas. So you also get a wide range of different types of atmospheres. Heidi is a ruined civilization with these beautiful buildings just submerged in water. And the backdrop of this deep blue ocean and this tower of flame is so enchanting. The atmosphere of the Dragon area is breathtaking. It's this feeling of majesty and awe. Shrine of Amana mechanically, I want to die. But the vibes are immaculate. But the absolute best atmospheric moment in DS2 for me has to be this. What a gut punch. A king who has been built up for the most of the game, much like Wynn before him. And I was expecting this to be a warrior raging to battle, but he's nothing but a lonely undead. This boss fight doesn't have the atmosphere and sound of a raging battle and clashing blades. No, it's just the sound of wandering footsteps and a dragging blade. He shambles around not even aware of you. A shadow of a man that he used to be. It immediately makes you think, are you any different? Is this the fate of those who try to be monarch? The music only emphasizes this. I've always loved the very first note of Vendrick's theme. It almost sounds like the musical equivalent of like a question mark. The music is almost emulating the feeling you as a player must have seeing this. As if the music is just as floored as you are. This moment is so impactful and it's a great use of atmosphere. A boss fight being great in Souls doesn't always have to mean that it was difficult and there was a lot of tricky attack time windows. No, a great boss can also be this. A boss fight that is instead a purely atmospheric moment. Bloodborne really is great when it comes to atmosphere. The city of Yharnam feels so genuinely real with its Victorian architecture and its insane citizens that actually talk. Away! Away! And the sound you hear all over the place of them like scraping their axes on the ground is both eerie and just ASMR for me basically. Beasts hung on stakes that are on fire, spooky dead trees, abandoned chariots everywhere with decaying horses on the ground. This place is cursed, bruh. And there's constantly this ominous, deadly atmosphere. Just a Tuesday in London, innit? The ever-changing skyboxes, like seeing the sky in this game go from this in the beginning of the game to this, when it goes into that like apocalyptic violet color with the giant red hanging moon. Oh man. The streets of Yharnam and the surrounding areas are a truly spooky, bewitching place in a terrifyingly atmospheric world that you can get lost in. Especially if we're talking about the hunter's dream. It's this hauntingly, nightmarishly surreal, beautiful location with a great giant moon, those tree trunks that obviously call back to the Ash Lake trees. And the music is so unique compared to past hub areas. This tune, at least for me, has much more of this sense of sadness. And knowing that it's basically a prison for Gehrman, I think that's very apt. The atmosphere here is a bit of a mix between the safety and comfort of Majula, but also the awe and like, I shouldn't be here in Ash Lake. It's all at once comforting and haunting and surreal and mysterious, and the music only adds to this. The serene, gentle vocals on top of the ominous music just makes for this very hypnotizing tune. The atmosphere here is one of a kind and you learn to love this location. Only to then for FromSoft to do what they did with Firelink in Dark Souls 1, but this time, everything's on fire. And just seeing this familiar location completely in blaze along with the longing music, that shit did something to me, man. I don't even know.
Lawrence, Master Willem, somebody help me. Unshackle me, please. Anybody. I've had enough of this dream. The night blocks all sight. Oh, somebody, please.
There's so many atmospheric locations in Bloodborne's world. The atmosphere of the Forbidden Woods had me spooked the whole time I was there, and then had me audibly scream and shit myself when I got hit by the booby trap. This motherfucker Miyazaki, man. Let me at him. Let me at him. The research hall with all the bloody medical equipment and the insane patients, some of them laying in bed and screaming and groaning. Some of them are scouring everywhere for eyeballs or just saying crazy shit. Hemwick was so unnerving to step into. Immediately you see these witches just gleefully like spinning in these maniacal circles, man. I was all while the atmosphere is peppered with maniacal laughs and groaning and screaming. But for me, what really enraptured me in Bloodborne's atmosphere was how the world changed throughout the game. I already talked a little bit about it with the skyboxes, but the mechanic of insight changing things here and there in Bloodborne's world was super engaging for me. It started with just little things like, as I had more insight, these dudes went from this to having like eyeballs on their lanterns, until next thing you know, you're seeing Cthulhu spider squid things just hanging from buildings. Bloodborne people, I need you in the comments to tell me like how you felt and how you reacted when you first saw one of these just hanging in places that you've seen before but weren't there. Went from Victorian Gothic horror with werewolves and like beasts and blood, typical Tuesday, to full-on cosmic Lovecraftian horror. But here's the thing that always gets me and like makes my skin crawl just thinking about it. It was always there. I just wasn't big brain enough to see it, or, not enough insight. That just creates this wholly unique atmosphere for this game. Whether I liked it or not, the atmosphere had officially placed me in this game. But real quick before we go, we just finished talking about Dark Souls 2 and Bloodborne. I think I know the perfect people to add to this conversation.
Hi, awesome internet roommate. I'm Sin from the Snack Covenant.
I'm Sophie, also from the Snack Covenant.
Big fan of your podcast. So I wanted to ask you both, what is your favorite atmospheric moment in a Souls game?
Sophie, what's your favorite atmospheric Soulsborne moment?
My favorite atmospheric Soulsborne moment is when you enter Hemwick Charnel Lane in Bloodborne.
Mm-hmm.
Because what it does is it sort of gets things you're familiar with from Yharnam that you've already seen, and it starts kind of recontextualizing them, and it makes you realize that there's something different to what you initially thought they were. When you're initially in Yharnam, you can sort of assume, like, okay, like, this is probably like a reasonably normal place at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And then this beast plague broke out, and that kind of sent everyone mad, and that's why they're like burning these huge crucified werewolves in the street. It's why they're running around like screaming. It's why they're all obsessed with blood. It's why they all seem to be obsessed with death. And this is probably like an aberration that happened because of the state the city is in. And then when you leave Yharnam, you end up in Hemwick.
Right.
And Hemwick is somewhere that like you start to see the same things happen, but it's in a very different environment.
Mm-hmm.
It's in an environment that's much older, and it's in an environment that doesn't have anyone that's turned into a beast in it. It just has normal people.
Yeah.
And you sort of realize that, all this stuff that I keep seeing in Yharnam, this probably has, like, really old cultural roots to it. Like, the first thing you see in Hemwick that everyone remembers is all the women circling the big statue. They're like, it's this sort of reverie. They're all, like, chanting. They're all laughing and dancing while they're, like, burning these bodies. And you hear this person in a house talking about how, like, the graveyard murmurs are starting.
Mm-hmm.
And you see in the distance there is this huge, huge castle that implies, like, there's something even older going on.
Mm-hmm.
And you encounter this witch who is collecting eyeballs.
Mm-hmm.
And you realize that, this is not, like, a weird thing that just happened because there was a beast problem. This is actually just part of the cultural history of the area. Like, these weird death rituals, obsession with body parts, obsession with burning things. Like, that's got roots in something that is much, much older.
Mm-hmm.
And it really recontextualizes what you see in Yharnam. And it changes it from, like, something went wrong in this city and that's why it's like this, to this city was always wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're looking at now is just that boiling over. And the other thing it does that, like, it's not something that you're familiar with at the moment when you first get there, but Hemwick is an area that's, like, almost entirely women.
Right.
Which you haven't really seen before, and it probably strikes you at the time, but you don't quite understand why. And then kind of the deeper you get into it, the more you realize that, like, all this stuff with the blood and the beasts and everything, it's grown out of a society that used to be matriarchal. And it was obsessed with, like, pregnancy and motherhood as things that, like, gave you status. Yeah, so what Hemwick's doing is it's recontextualizing what you've already seen, and it sort of plants in your head that like this is something that's going to be important later on. So when that finally comes into focus, you realize like what Hemwick was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was beautiful.
Sin, what's your favorite moment? Atmospheric moment?
My favorite moment is the entirety of Dark Souls 2.
Why is that?
Well, you know how Dark Souls 2 has kingdoms that have fallen?
Mm-hmm.
Structures remain, but
For the first time in the series.
You know how there are still structures, right? But the culture is lost. Society is lost. And as we're going through the game, we're trying to piece lore together through the fragments that we find.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, the characters we meet may be going through the same thing internally. Their mind is fading away, their essence is fading away, they are themselves kind of fragmented. And where it gets personal for me is that I work in research, and I used to work in a lab that studied major neurocognitive disorders. And so at my previous job, I was on a project where I followed people in long-term care facilities who had Alzheimer's. And, I would conduct evaluations and talk to them over long periods of time. And I would really get to know the residents that I would visit in the long-term care facilities. It was a really good project, but sometimes it would be a little hard because sometimes a resident would have a bad day and they may become aggressive, they may become upset, and they may actually focus on the fact that their mind is fading and they realize it's fading, but there's nothing they can do about it and they'd be devastated. And I would do my best to be there for them at those times, but it was hard, and it would, sometimes take a toll on me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes even I would come in to do my day of work, and I'd be looking for a resident, and I'd ask their nurse, oh, where's this person or that person? And she'd tell me, well, they just passed away. Sorry.
Mm.
And it was hard. It was hard. I'd have to go for a 5-minute walk and cry, to get myself together and keep going with my day, because yeah. Back to Dark Souls 2. The atmosphere of Dark Souls 2, what the characters were going through, playing it was therapeutic for me, because the things that were happening in Dark Souls 2 kind of paralleled with what I was, facing in my job. And playing Dark Souls 2 sort of helped me, face and process things that were happening in real life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's why, part of why at least, Dark Souls 2 has a very special place in my heart, because it helped me through a very tough time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hashtag Dark Souls 2. Shibuya did nothing wrong. Well, thank you, Sophie.
Thank you, Sin.
Thank you, awesome internet roommate. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. I will see y'all later. Admittedly, at least for me, I don't think DS3 has as many super atmospheric areas as the previous games, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have any at all. The one that immediately comes to my mind when I think of atmosphere in DS3 has to be Irithyll Dungeon. It's a pretty obvious callback to the most atmospheric area in Demon Souls, being the Tower of Latria and the Prison of Hope. Once again, we have a very dank and dark prison, and much like Latria, it uses certain elements to really emphasize the fear of this location. Much like the Prison of Hope, it has a very horrifying soundscape. Rasping of what is probably those undead enemies, and this very creepy breathing. And this area has one of the best tone setters for the atmosphere. I came into this area with my pants already soiled, my character walking real slowly, heart rate speeding up. I was in super anticipation mode because I was scared. And then they hit me with this. Jump scare? Are we serious? How many times do we have to talk about this? How many times? What also helped the terrifying atmosphere of this area was the fact that you can't even look at the jailers without losing health, just adding to the fear factor of it all. You're in constant fear, constant panic, and the actual times that you finally get to maybe chill out and take a breather, this thing is breathing right back at you. This is the first time you're seeing this abomination, and it's not hostile. You can just take your time to look at it. And while you are terrified of this human baby dragon thing, I also felt bad for it because like it made me start thinking like what kind of crazy experiments are they doing on these creatures. But where I think Dark Souls 3's atmosphere really shines is more in like a macro sense of the world versus just area by area basis. It's as you go further and further until eventually you come across Anor Londo. Not necessarily the areas like sound or anything like that, more the fact that it is Anor Londo, and realizing that little by little, that's the atmosphere of Dark Souls 3. That's where it's at its best. It's seeing this familiar place to you, and remembering its majesty and awe, and now seeing it completely frozen over and stripped away. The vibrance and the light is all gone. The one we would probably call our friend is gone. The very floor is flooded. Everything that was familiar to us has been corrupted. This area is a perfect showcasing of the Dark Souls 3 atmosphere. This feeling that we are walking through a world that should end, that needs to come to an end, that has prolonged itself for too long now. The prior games also had this feeling of like, hey, you need to stop prolonging the fire, but Dark Souls 3 really hammers that point home, especially with areas like Anor Londo. In almost every part of Dark Souls 3's world, you feel this sense of decay and this surreal sense of incongruity between the areas. I remember exploring a lot of these areas, and every now and then I'd get reminded of something from a past area. Like, this is Ash Lake, but it's mixed with like the demon ruins, so everything that was like in awe and majesty is now covered in lava and destroyed. And if you go deeper into the demon ruins, you start to see the enemies that were once there, and now they're all completely made of stone. And you even see Quaylag's sister in the same fate. This also happens in Farron Keep. When you explore it enough, you find the old mushroom people that were once whooping your ass, but now they're all gone. Or this bridge that's a clear callback to Dark Souls 1's Dragon Bridge, but the dragon is now completely dead. It feels like everything we've known is falling apart. It's more convoluted than ever. It's folding in on itself and to make this completely surreal and just sad experience. Like, obviously I didn't particularly enjoy like getting burned by the dragon. Like, I didn't like love that area or anything, but still seeing it like this is such a clever way to use nostalgia and completely corrupt it, because that's the atmosphere of Dark Souls 3. Everything you've known has been corrupted. Even the places you thought were sacred, well, they're this now. More than ever does this game tell you, do not pick the prolonging the fire ending, because things will only get worse until they become nothing but ash. And they show that narratively too, because if you do choose to prolong the fire ending, unlike prior games where the fire would envelop the whole area, it's a weak, brittle, little flame. I think doing this gave Dark Souls 3 the most bleak and hopeless atmosphere of them all. I'd say Sekiro's general atmosphere is that of like bloody, gritty battle and like ancient mythological Japanese beauty. What makes its atmosphere unique to the Souls games is that the world isn't as well, fuck. Thus, there's a lot more room for just typical beauty, which also makes moments of seeing that beauty destroyed or ruined hit that much harder, I think. And while you do get a lot of very realistic, war-torn Japanese areas, you also get these more fantasy areas that have this ethereal beauty to them and just have this sense of divinity. And if there's two areas that I think really excel at atmosphere, the first one would be Mibu Village. Immediately when you come into here, the OST gives this feeling of unease. This area is very Bloodborne in my opinion. It's this little village where all the civilians have gone completely insane. And the NPCs you can talk talk to are just as erratic and weird. And as you piece together the lore as to what happened in this village, the atmosphere only hits harder. Like how you find out that the water of the village is water that runs down from the Fountainhead Palace. The very same water that Genichiro tried to use to find another way to get immortality. But much like a lot of Sekiro's other forms of immortality, it's corrupted. The water went into the mud and created the sediment that these villagers ate, and thus not only did they go insane, but they also got a very corrupted form of immortality. So the enemies will actually respawn at times when you kill them. This adds an air of sadness to the area because now I don't want to hurt these enemies as much because what happened to them wasn't their fault at all. This whole area gives me extreme Junji Ito vibes. And the other area I want to mention is the divine beauty of the Fountainhead Palace. Probably the best looking area in this entire game. It's basically Sekiro's Anor Londo. It's this mystifyingly beautiful place. The running waterfalls, the cherry blossoms everywhere, not just the trees, but the little petals that fell off and that litter the water and the floors. Once again, you get that air of like, this place is sacred, it's for the divine. And it's only helped by the beautiful Yuki Kitamura OST. And as you explore this place, FromSoft continues to use atmospheric elements to make this place feel more real. For example, whenever you find the Okami warriors, they're all just doing their own thing in some unique ways. Whether that be doing this kind of combat-like dancing by the bridge here, or just kind of messing around with this ball right here. This makes these enemies feel real, like they have a life of their own, and just adds to the atmosphere. And then you have the nobles who add to the atmosphere and the soundscape by playing this beautiful flute melody. But because this is a FromSoft game, it can't be all beauty and perfect. Because while this place might look mystical and amazing from afar, as soon as you get closer and you really dig deep, you find more of what's wrong and the corruption of the darkness of it all. Starting with the obvious ones, like how all the beautiful buildings are decaying and dilapidated and destroyed, to going to the very depths of the water and finding all the infestation in it. This is beautifully helped by the OST also having a sort of melancholy to it. It's things like this that give Sekiro's atmosphere its own unique vibe. And now finally we've reached Elden Ring, which like all these games has multiple examples of atmosphere, whether it be whole entire areas or just specific moments. But before we jump into Elden Ring, let's see what our boy Ember has to say about it.
Oh, hey, what's up, IP?
What's up, man? Thank you for helping me out with this. So, what's your favorite, like, atmospheric moment in Souls games?
My favorite atmospheric moment in the Souls series has gotta be Leyndell Royal Capital from Elden Ring. The moment I stepped out and saw that dragon statue, looking out at all the buildings and the bright, vibrant colors, realizing I could actually go to every single place I was looking at was ridiculous. With a game as long as Elden Ring, it was really hard for me to tell when I was actually in the late game. Every time I thought I was getting close to the end, there was just so much more to do. And even though you still have a pretty long ways to go when you reach the Royal Capital, it's undeniable that this was one of the most mind-blowing areas in the series for me. But for real, I thought 100% this was the last area in Elden Ring, and I was so incredibly wrong. But I think this is on par with some of the greatest moments in Souls history, like the reveal of Irithyll of the Boreal Valley, Guinevere from Dark Souls, Quelaag from Dark Souls, Priscilla from Dark Souls. Please, I need a girlfriend. But Leyndell was one of the rare, colorful moments in the Souls series that always gives you kind of a sigh of relief when you find it. This area had an atmosphere unlike anything else in the series, in my opinion, and I loved exploring every inch of this place. Also, some of these enemies drove me nuts, man.
Thank you so much for the input, man. I gotta go, so I'll be seeing you later, alright?
Thanks for stopping by, man. Oh, wait.
Oh, what's up?
Before I forget, I wanted to tell you...
One that immediately comes to my mind that I feel like a lot of new players when they came into the game were pretty surprised about was how some of the enemies just started showing off their pipes. Having just this humanoid-ish bat character just sing this eerie but beautiful song was just mesmerizing, which simultaneously gives me this feeling of like, wow, that's really cool and like beautiful, but also like a little bit of trepidation, like I'm scared. Like I don't know why. Things singing beautifully in Souls games just creep me the fuck out, and I just feel like I'm gonna get my ass whooped. I love how moments like these help this world feel more real. Help the enemies feel like real creatures that exist in it, and they have other things to do outside of just giving you the hands. It helps with that whole sense of like, you are nobody special. You are just a nobody in a huge, vast world, and both the characters and enemies have lives outside of you. It adds so much to these characters, to the world, and to the atmosphere. And I can keep going all day. There's so many great areas in Elden Ring that give off a lot of atmosphere, but for me, my favorite moment has to be this. Obviously, we've been talking about how just making enemies do something interesting in the world that outside of wanting to kill you, it adds so much atmosphere and realness to the characters. We pretty much see it throughout the entire series. This is probably the best use of it I've ever seen. You got the moody yellow skies, the windmills, and the decrepit village, full of just these vibrant pink flower patches. You see them on doors as ornaments, you see them on the windmills and the houses, you see them on the floor, and of course you see these demented ladies just prancing and dancing, completely ignoring your existence. With, of course, their demonic laughter just filling the soundscape. When I found this, I just sat there and just let myself be enraptured by it. Again, what a great use of enemies to only add to the atmosphere of the place, but also to make enemies feel more real. Immediately you're thinking like, why are they doing this? Is this some sort of ritual? Is this something that they're forced to do? Can they not stop? Is this like some sort of like mind control? And this area, much like Irithyll Dungeon, has an amazing tone setter by when you walk in the very front, there's a ghost guy and he is just begging to not be skinned alive. From afar, all you're seeing is flowers and singing and dancing and laughter. All usually positive things. But the closer you get, the more the sinister elements become evident. The blood everywhere, the creepy faces, the ghost. Suddenly that laughter doesn't sound as joyful as you thought it might have. Also, I think it's pretty cool that I think this clearly takes influence from things like the Midsommar film and the Dancing Plague. This place is uncanny and it's terrifying. In this game full of giants, singing bats, monstrous crabs, lobsters, and bears, birds with swords on their hands, dragons, jiren, and spiders. And don't get me started on this motherfucker, man. Just when you thought FromSoft couldn't make a more annoying enemy, this piece of shit. Alright fellas, Miyazaki's done this to us too many times. Should we slide on the ops? Out of all that, these crazy laughing ladies are the creepiest and most terrifying of all. Because of that atmosphere. I think you get it at this point. I've played a lot of Souls-like games and I've enjoyed quite a few of them, and I think a lot of them have captured parts of the Souls experience. But one thing I feel like they never really capture is that atmosphere, at least to the same level. Which I hope through my appreciation of it in this video, I've shown why it's so integral to these worlds. Atmosphere plays a big hand in helping us understand what our characters we're playing as feel. So you aren't just playing an area in a game or experiencing a moment in a game. No, you're walking through a living, breathing world that just so happens to be accessed by a beep boop machine in your living room. It helps us get that much closer to understanding the feel, the smell, the sound of a world. Atmosphere is what makes games feel real. Thank you for coming to my lecture. I hope you enjoyed your stay at this corner of the internet. And please let me know in the comments some of your favorite atmospheric moments or areas in Souls games. I want to thank these amazing Souls creators for coming on to my video and giving their input. And of course, I want to give you some context. I've been gone for a little bit. Obviously, if you saw my post, I've been working on this huge video about anime backgrounds. Turns out it's going to take till May for me to upload that. So I kind of whipped this one up real quick to give y'all something great. And I got one more thing to mention before we go. So on my Patreon, my highest tier is known as the Pitstopper tier. And if you're at that tier for 3 months, from then on, as long as you're a Pitstopper, you get designed a pixel art character that will show up at all of these pit stops that I do towards the end of my videos. Think of them as like my party members if we were like in a RPG. I'm gonna name off the ones we currently have now, but there is more coming, just so you know. First off, I want to introduce our boy Monk HB. Then we got Zalion Eclipse. Then we got our boy Yamcha Kipper thank you for allowing me to do your pose today. And finally, if you know the Patreon lore, then you know this fella here is a bit of a legend in these parts. Introducing our boy, Pavel. If this looks cool to you, like you want to have a cool little pixel art character at the end of my videos, just go to my Patreon and just look up the information. You'll find out how. I hope you enjoyed it. I got some great stuff coming. Thank you all so much for your support. If you're new here and like what I do, you can always give me a like and a subscribe. I'll always appreciate that. But the best way to support your boy is here on Patreon. I make extra content there and I do some cool stuff. But as always, thank you so much for coming to this little pit stop on the corner of the internet. Peace.